Welcome, everybody, to part 4 of God Is That You? We are tackling the subject in this series of talks on how to recognize when God is talking to you and how to develop communication between you and the Lord. So, in this series, Job chapter 33, verse 14 is the foundation text of these talks. It says, "For God does speak, now one way, now another, but people do not perceive it." So the breakdown in communication is not that God's not communicating. He is speaking. He does it in different ways, but people don't perceive it. They don't recognize it and they don't regard it. And that begins to bring some understanding to the fact that there are communication breakdowns. They're on us, the imperfect people, not on a perfect God. In addition to that, we saw that there are breakdowns in the fact that we aren't perfect people. We mishear, we misinterpret, we misunderstand. In fact, even amongst fellow human beings, that happens all the time. In addition to that, there are human beings that speak languages we don't speak, so we don't understand them. In addition, that leads to second breakdown, which is ignorance, where we don't know. We don't know the language. We don't know what to look for and how to interpret or understand or read what's being communicated to us. So ignorance is not bliss. It's destructive. It hurts. And so making sure that we learn the language and so on. Number 3 barrier or breakdown had to do with noise and distractions. Even the best communicators can go unheard or misunderstood based on the environment that makes it difficult to hear them. And then in addition to that, we saw the fourth breakdown or barrier was relating to sin or missing perfection. And that shows up in our imperfections, which manifest as mistakes and accidents. And those can cause trouble in our communication with God. But even more is the outright rebellion. And that has to do where we don't regard what God has to say. In other words, we don't care about it. We have no intention of listening and complying. We just want to hear from God what we want him to say, not what he actually wants to say. We want him to operate on our terms and serve us and bless us rather than us actually do life on his terms and serve him and experience the blessings and rewards that come with that. Now, the fifth breakdown today that we're going to talk about in our talk is this, and that is that God is spirit, and we are spirits, but we live in a natural material world, and we operate in that world in a flesh vehicle. And so everything we do, how we think and talk and behave, is really mostly oriented to this natural world and the things that appeal. We make sense of the world and we understand it through our 5 senses. Well, that's a major problem when it comes to you communicating and developing a relationship with an immaterial God, a spirit that you can't see, can't taste, can't smell, can't touch or hear, right? And so how do you communicate? It's kind of like a blind person and trying to teach them and help them understand colors. If you were born blind, how would you ever get them to understand yellow? Maybe you would take them outside and say, feel the warmth of the sun. That is like what yellow is. Or to have them, the burn of a flame. That's what red is like. You could do the smell of an orange, and that would, so that's what orange is like. But in truth, this is going to produce a very limited, very narrow, small understanding, and there's a whole lot that they will not understand. They will really never fully grasp what blue and red and yellow and orange are as colors because they're blind. And that's the challenge for you and I to a degree, is that there is a world that's beyond this one, that's bigger, more real. It's actually eternal. It lasts forever. This one will not. Both scientists and God agree on that one. So this is, how will we as natural creatures understand the supernatural? How would spirit communicate with material? How would you learn a vocabulary and language when it's like a blind person trying to learn colors? It's going to be a challenge, to put it mildly. Now, we can look around as material creatures, we can look around this material world and see indicators and evidence that there is more and that there is someone or something behind it all. But creation itself, the material world itself, does not tell us who or what it is. The only answer, the only way we can really come to know and get to know this thing or person is that there are some things we may learn about the who and what that is behind the universe through observation of what was created, but to really know the unknowable is that the unknowable would have to make itself known. Okay, so it or he or she would have to reveal themselves. And that, friends, is the good news, is that God, in his great grace and mercy, took the initiative, okay, to enter our realm and to reveal himself and to set a standard and precedent in an authoritative way that generations to come could refer back to and grow in their knowledge and relationship with this God. So the immaterial had to make a material means or way for these material creatures to get to know the immaterial God. So even the Bible, friends, is the authoritative record of those encounters and revealings of this supernatural God in a very real life story of a nation and of the human race of people. So even more amazing is that in this story, the author himself becomes one of the characters, okay, and takes on flesh and becomes one of these material creatures walking around on planet Earth. He was known as Jesus Christ of Nazareth. We have talked about that, and we'll talk about it more. But real quick, when you open the Bible, you will notice that the vast majority of it is a narrative. It's a story. It's not a textbook. It's not an instruction manual. It's a narrative. It's God's story, with some God-inspired poems and instructions that take up some of it as well. And God saw fit, friends, to reveal himself in a way that is recorded and that would hold up under the standards of legal burden of proof and scrutiny. This is our primary and authoritative source to understand who God is, what he is like, and what he wants from us and for us, and what we can expect from him, and how he works and communicates, and much, much, much more. So the Bible becomes a kind of tape measure, the authority, the tape measure, and standard by which we compare all other forms and content of communication. So more on that later, because that's obviously then one of the ways God communicates to us. But I just wanted to share with you one of the breakdowns in communication is that God is spirit and we operate as material beings, spirit in natural bodies. And so there's always that challenge for us to understand from the limitations of an earthbound perspective, what are the vast mysteries and truths of a world that's much larger and much more real. So I hope that makes sense to you. I encourage you to have an awesome day. And starting from this session on, we're going to start talking about how God does talk to us. So have an awesome day, and I'll talk with you later. Bye.